Ben Vitale.
Here.
Chris Peter.
Present.
Paul Hickey.
Here.
Aileen McDad-Coleman.
Present.
Keith Batman.
Here.
Joe DeForest.
Present.
Charlie Ripley.
Present.
Joseph Bennett.
Present.
Lane Daly.
Here.
Pat Mahoney excused. Timothy Lattimore.
Present.
Michael Didio.
Here.
Ryan Foley.
Present.
Tucker Wood.
Here. Please stand for the pledge and a moment of silent prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Our sincere condolences to the family and friends of Robert Duckett, brother of Gary Duckett, Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds. Your one proclamation, the 75th anniversary of D-Day, June 6, 2019, which was presented by Tim Lattimore.
At this time, is there any privilege of the floor? No. Keith?
Yeah, Theo. I think I have a Scipio resident, Jim.
If we can keep it to 3 minutes, we'd be good.
Yes, sir. I'll do it as fast as I
All right.
can. Not fast. Chairman, legislators, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jim Perkins. I'm one of the 9 deputy fire coordinators in the city county, who, along with the deputy director of fire, have been helping keep the emergency management office running. The 10 of us together probably have about 300 years of experience in fire EMS and EMS. Why I'm standing here is because we strongly believe, along with the Cayuga County Fire Advisory Board, which is a board by state law to advise the county legislature on fire, EMS, and EMO matters, which I'm sure you are all aware, and the fire and EMS providers in the county believe that the plan to combine EMO and 911 is doomed to failure from the start. We believe that the EMO needs a director with a background in emergency management, fire, and EMS to get the office up and running again. The director will work with the legislature to staff the office to a level that will address the needs of Cayuga County. Excuse me. We'll work with state and federal government officials to meet their requirements and mandates for the safety and well-being of our residents. To that end, the deputy coordinators, the deputy director of fire, and the fire advisory board would like to offer our assistance to the legislature in reviewing the applications that were submitted to make, for a new director, and whatever we can do to help to find a leader that you can appoint. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Is there any other privilege of the floor? If not, we'll move along.
Minutes to approve, May 28, 2019, and June 5, 2019.
Move them. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We have a presentation from Chris Ivan from the U.S. Census Bureau.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Chris Ivan. I'm honored to be here. I'm with the U.S. Census Bureau. I'm a partnership specialist. And you, as leaders of this community, you crave information to ensure the strength of your community. I'm here to tell you that the census, data from the census, is critical to your aims of improving the community. And I have 4 key points I'm going to get to in this presentation. Number 1, the 2020 census is like next week. It's very soon. It's right around the corner. It's important, it's safe, it's easy, and we need people like you, leaders, and people like you in the audience, to know those things and share that information with the people who are less likely to respond. When everyone gets counted, everyone gets the political representation and the resources they deserve. So, quick background. The U.S. Census Bureau is the nation's leading provider of quality data about America. We are experts on statistics. Our goal with the U.S. Census, the 2020 census, is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. Now, we're experts in statistics. We do not just the 2020 census and the 2010 census. We're constantly surveying people. The census is a count of people. Surveys are layered on top of that so that we have the complete picture of the quality of our society, our veteran status, disability status, employment characteristics, housing statistics, health insurance statistics. That all comes from census data. And it's used in so many different ways. First of all, the U.S. Census data is, first of all, it's prescribed in the Constitution. It's the 6th sentence of the Constitution that requires a decennial census. That purpose goes straight to the core of our democracy, is to make sure we have fair representation. So the census is required to distribute votes in the U.S. House of Representatives properly. That's the political purpose, the main overarching purpose. But it's used in so many other ways. Every year, $675 billion worth of federal dollars is distributed based on where people are, based on the data that's derived from the census. $675 billion. A lot of that comes to this community. When people don't get counted, that money doesn't go where it needs to go. So that's money, but also policies. Where people are, they need roads, they need schools, they need prisons. And so the census data is used to determine the best use of resources for policies. It's also used to divide every sort of voting district that you work with in this county. Every school district uses census data to divide their lines and make sure they're serving people properly. So my first main point, the census is important. Second main point is that the census is safe. To help shape our future, we know that the data has to be accurate. We know that people are less likely to share personal information if they don't trust the Census Bureau. So we have enshrined our ability to protect that data in law. Ever since the 1950s, Title 13 of the U.S. Code is protected census data. That means that the Census Bureau may not, under any circumstances, release personally identifiable information to anyone, not an individual, not another agency, not police, not the Department of Justice, not a state. Lots of agencies and individuals have sued to try to get that information, that personally identifiable information. They have always failed. That's one level of protection. And by the way, that Title 13 ensures that me as a census employer and all other census employees, we are prohibited from releasing this information under penalty of 5 years in prison and $50,000 fine. So I'm not going to release the information. But we also have cybersecurity. We have the highest level possible cybersecurity to protect data as it goes in. Once it's in, it's encrypted and scrambled in a sense so that it can't be used by anyone nefariously. So, second key point, the census is safe. The next key point is the census is easy. Now, you guys are community leaders. You know that to make things easy for the public, you have to do a lot of work in the back end. What you see up here doesn't look easy. This is the work on the back end that had to be done to make it easy. We made sure, first of all, we're making sure that we have the right information on where to count. And I can say that the Cayuga County Department of Planning was very instrumental in making sure that we had an up-to-date list of addresses. We're going beyond that. We're actually ensuring, working with the county and others, that we have all the houses that will be built between now and April 1st. So we want to make sure we know where everyone lives. That's establishing where to count, critically important. We're right now at the motivating people to respond stage. We're in the early stages of that, and that's why I'm here. We know that this fall, this spring, coming up next year, there's going to be a lot of advertisements, a lot of buzz, lots of information, lots of news stories about the census, about how important it is, about how everyone has to do it. It's your civic duty. It's all true. But there will be people who won't respond to those messages. Those people we call hard to count. They're not going to respond quickly and easily. We need to reach out to them. And what we found is the most effective way to reach those hard-to-count populations, to make sure that your people are counted properly, is to work with community leaders like you and others, community leaders who work with vulnerable groups such as people who are in poverty, people who are homebound, people who don't speak English as a first language, veterans, people with disabilities. We want to work with all those people, all those community leaders. We want to create partnerships with the U.S. Census Bureau and those community leaders so we can share information and make sure that the people that they serve, that you serve, get counted. So that's critically important. That's where we are right now. So we're ramping up with that. That's why I'm here. I want to establish a partnership with Cayuga County and other community leaders so that the information is flowing in a way that makes sense, that you understand that the census is important, safe, and easy, and then we can get that to the people who need to know that information the most. Then we count the population. Here's where there's some new things in 2020. For the first time ever, the census will be online first. Here's how we're going to do that. We're going to send, in 2010, everyone got a pack of paper. You had to fill out a pack of paper, you mailed it in. If you didn't do that, you got a visit, right? There's 2 steps before that this year, in 2020. This year, everyone will get an invitation in the mail. It will say, here's your 10-digit code that matches your address, which you got over here. Here's your 10-digit code, visit this website, fill out the form, quick, easy, done. Most people are going to do that. We're excited about that. That's a new capability that is new for 2020. We also have another way of people to fill out the census. That's by phone. This is new. So you can call a phone number and fill out the census by phone. You're going to get a couple of reminders like that in the mail. If you don't respond, then you'll get the piece of paper, just like in 2010. So for those who don't want to use the internet, who don't want a phone call, they can still fill it out on paper, no problem. If they then don't respond, then that's when they'll get that final invitation, they'll get that final visit, and that will happen later on in the spring and into the summer. So that's how we're counting the population here this year. There's a piece of paper in your packet that explains that in depth. And then we analyze the results. We deliver to the president by the end of 2020 and to the states by the end of March 2021. So that's how we make it easy. But there's more to it than just that. We know that not everyone speaks English, so every mailing will be bilingual, English and Spanish. Beyond that, though, see the 12 languages in the middle there? If you don't speak English or Spanish, but you do speak French or Japanese or Polish, you can fill out the form online in your own language. You can also call a phone number and fill out the census in your own language. So those 12 languages are for you, for those who don't speak English. The 15, there we go. The 59 other languages, total 59 languages up there. Those languages, there will be videos and guides for people to fill out the existing forms, the paper forms, in those languages. But still, there are people who don't speak any of those languages. We know that. That's what, again, where we need to reach out to our community leaders who have language abilities that we don't have, who can focus on their ability to help people who don't speak those languages to fill out the census. Looking ahead, we have a plan, which I kind of went over already. And we're opening a field office in Syracuse, not this summer, so that's coming up soon. And we're hiring. Not only are we hiring management, field office, supervisory type people, mostly working in Syracuse, but more importantly and more common, we're hiring enumerators. Enumerators, we want the people who do end up going to people's houses. We want them to be from your community because they know your community better. They know they're more likely to know the neighborhood. They're more likely to be able to overcome any linguistic or cultural barriers. So these are good jobs. We're hiring now, and I have information in your packet there. I have more information here if you're interested. 2020census.gov/jobs. The lowest paid job is $17 an hour. That's good. Supervisors get more than that. And they're very flexible. Very flexible jobs in terms of time. In a lot of ways, the 2020 census is going to be the most difficult ever because of lots of changes. I won't go into them because I don't have time. I want to leave time for your questions. But the key to overcoming those obstacles, again, is our partnerships. The partnerships we make with users like yourselves. Those partners can be elected officials like you, but they can also be government offices, school districts, media outlets. Libraries are critically important because we're, again, online first. We want people to go online. That's the best way for people to fill out the census. It's safe, it's cheap, it's easy. Libraries have computers. So any place that has publicly available computers, they're a key partner for us. We're also doing specific outreach to certain targeted groups because we know nationwide that they they have a need for special handling in terms of reaching out to certain groups. We census staffers, partnership specialists like myself, and Tina Hanford, who is a Cayuga County resident. She's also a partnership specialist. We have the ability to come to your meetings to share information. We have the ability to share promotional materials, social media posts. We want to be part of the solution. We want to be your sort of behind-the-scenes advisors to help you ensure that your community gets counted. So we can do lots of things. We can come to your events. We can give you ideas. I think some magic happens, though, when people get together. So working with the U.S. Census Bureau is great. I think the strongest way that you can ensure that everyone gets counted in your community is to work with others who are similarly motivated to help make sure that your people get counted. We call that a complete count committee. It's a model that we rolled out nationwide this year. We started in 2010. It was very successful. It's a group of community leaders from a wide variety of backgrounds, government, business, nonprofit especially, who meet occasionally. They might divide into subcommittees to target certain hard-to-count groups. They brainstorm. They come up with strategies. I can advise them. That's my role. It's one of my most enjoyable roles as a partnership specialist. And that can happen now. That can happen anytime. You can appoint or decree that there shall be that you'll take the lead of the complete count committee. If you don't, there will be others who do. But I always like to make sure that the counties have the first dibs at saying they're leading the charge to make sure that everyone can be counted in their county. So that's why I'm here today. Complete count committees divided into subcommittees depending on your community. These may be subcommittees you're interested in or not. But you can come up with strategies, like I mentioned. We have some great tools to help you. One of them is called ROAM, R-O-A-M. It's Response Outreach Area Mapper. It's meaningless. It's an acronym the U.S. government comes up with, right? But what it means is it's a mapper that allows you to see where people are less likely to respond. Okay, so what I've got here is an image. It's a screenshot from ROAM. And you can go to this website here. That website, you can go there now. It's live. It's public. And it shows by census tract where people are less likely to respond based on their response in 2010, other demographic factors. It's thrown into an algorithm. Basically, the darker the shade, the more likely people are to not respond to self-respond. And when you click on those census tracts, so I clicked on a census tract here in Auburn, it says that it has a low response score of 27, which means that they predict that 27% of the people in that district, that census tract, won't self-respond on the first go. That's 27% of the population there that you're going to have to work hard to make sure they respond. And when you scroll down, when you click on it, you can see, and you can't scroll down now, but you can see characteristics of the people who live in that census tract based on their languages, and their poverty, and their renting status, and how long they've been there. And it'll give you some clues as to a method to overcome some of their obstacles, no matter what they are. So maybe if there's a lot of public housing in that district because the renter number is high, you might want to go through the housing agency to reach people, for example. We also have a data dissemination program. Basically, this information, public, the data that comes from the census is awesome, but it's complex, hard to decipher. I'm not a statistician. I go to this place, census.gov/academy to help understand it. If your planning department knows how to use it, but we have people who can come to you and help you understand it as well if you're interested. So, we're social, we're spreading information all the time. We're happy to share information with your people, or if you can follow us, you can share our posts so that the people that you serve are more likely to get to know the importance and safety of the census. There's my contact information. I'm going to leave my cards here, so that you can contact me. And for people in the community here, I'll stay after my presentation. I'll be happy to talk to you about any of this. But I want to give you some time now to ask me all the questions that I'm sure you have about the U.S. Census in 2020.
Mr. Dennison.
You know, a couple frames ago there, you called it a counting committee, and before you showed, I mean, basically census, you're trying to get accurate numbers. One of the complaints that I've heard from people, and I'll admit I kind of agree with them, is there's an awful lot of personal questions on there. So I think that's where you're lacking with getting a response, because, you know, are you counting people or are you delving into their lives? That's what people are thinking. So
Great question, and I'd like to address that. There is a sheet of paper that I put in your packet that you can check out. It lists all of the questions that are going to be on the census form and why we asked them. And there aren't, so there is no more long form. The term long form, that doesn't exist anymore. That's the last time we used that was in 2000. So everyone gets the short form, essentially. And the short form is simple questions. Your name, age, phone number. Most of those are used to teach you, to make sure you're not, to make sure that we don't have people trying to teach you. But the people living in your household, your relationship with the household, here's the sheet. So why we ask. Sorry about that.
What's it say on top?
Why we ask. We want to know if you're a renter or an owner. We want to know your phone number, your name. We want to know that your age and date of birth, your Hispanic status, your ethnicity, your race, whether you live somewhere else, and the relationship you have with other people. So, yes, they are personal questions. And that's why we have the responses, the information is enshrined in law that we can't release them. We need people like you, who are in constituents, that, yes, they're personal, but they're necessary, and they are protected by law. Unlike any other survey that anyone gives any information to.
But then there used to be like income questions and stuff like
That
that.
was the long form. So, yeah, let me explain that. We still do that. We still ask those questions when we do them in a survey form. In other words, we don't count everybody. We sample a certain population. We do that every year, the American Community Survey. And we ask those more in-depth questions so that we can layer that quality data on top of the foundation of the census so we know more about the human citizen in America.
Mr. Lattimore.
Two questions. The governor has indicated that people in the millions are leaving upstate New York because of the weather issue. Is there a question on there about taxes? Are the taxes too high or anything like that? And then secondarily, are we counting everybody who has a driver's license?
We are counting everyone, period.
Period.
That has always been true. The U.S. Census, ever since 1790, when Thomas Jefferson ran it, counted everyone, regardless of whether they have a card or whether they're a citizen or anything else. And that will be true this year.
So people aren't leave. It's because of the weather that people are leaving upstate New
I don't know anything about that. I live here and I love it here.
Any other questions? Foley.
Just a quick one. If people fill out incomplete information, does that not count them, or how does that work?
That's a great question. So the census will count, so everyone will get the questions. We know that there are going to be some people who don't answer all questions, they're going to skip one, whatever. We will still count them as a person. Every question that's missed, that is skipped, will decrease the quality of the data. We have some ways of, it's called imputing. I don't really quite understand that. It's a statistical thing, imputing the characteristics of the population, but it's a lower quality method of understanding the quality of the population. So, yes, they will be counted. The more questions people leave blank, the more likely they might get a visit from someone saying, hey, we've got some questions here, left unanswered.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. And like I said, I'm available for questions afterward. I'll be outside. Thank you.
Appointments and reappointments?
Move them. Second.
All in favor of the appointments and reappointments?
Aye.
All, any opposed?
I'm not opposed, I just got a question.
Mr. Dennison?
This Policy Review and Oversight Committee, I'm just curious, because like the veterans, they're all Cayuga County. I mean, there's one Farmington, one DeWitt. I'm just curious why it's not Cayuga County residents. What's the difference between this committee and any other, I guess?
Does our legal happen to know?
I do not.
Okay. I can get the answer for you. I don't know off the top of my
Okay,
head.
well, I'm just curious as to, I mean, Policy Review and Oversight Committee, what exactly is that doing?
Denise can address it.
So the Policy Review and Oversight Committee is the committee that oversees the emergency communication system. The people that you're looking at, Captain Galvin was the captain for the state police. That's his home address. He's actually stationed here at Troop E.
Okay.
which is here in Auburn. And the other one, you're looking at Jason Green, who's actually a Cayuga County coordinator. That's his
Okay.
home address. So their home addresses are just not Cayuga County.
Okay.
So those are passed, right? They were all in favor, nobody opposed.
Communications and announcements?
Waive the readings.
Mr. Durant.
Good evening, everyone. Good to be with you. Sorry, and my apologies for not being able to make it last month. Obviously, we concluded our primary academic year. We had our commencement ceremony. We were able to celebrate our faculty and staff for all their accomplishments. May is always an exciting time. And June, we're rolling into reviewing our year and getting ahead to plan for the beginning of the fall semester. With me today is one of our trustees, Marlo, thank you for being here. Last week, we announced formally that we had hired our next provost of the institution, our vice president of academic affairs. He comes to us with a decorated career of experience in SUNY, working at both at Mohawk Valley Community College and Jefferson Community College. Most recently served as president of Southern Maine Community College until transitioning back to Central New York about a year ago. So Dr. Ron Cantor will be joining us July 1st and taking over that role, serving as the chief academic officer and replacing Dr. Ann Herron, who's retiring from the organization after 8 decorated years of leadership in her capacity. So we certainly wish her well. Over the last several weeks, we continue to sort of manage and monitor our capital projects, primarily the one on Wall Street, formerly known as the Neighborhood House, our child care facility. The work continues to be on schedule. We have a goal of opening that facility in mid-August, mid to late August. As you're aware, we acquired that facility back in February, and we've been able to successfully move through a design phase of construction, procurement, to be able to move this particular project along. The budget for the project is $1 million, and we continue to be on budget and on time. The other aspect of this particular project that has been exciting all along, knowing that there have been community conversations related to the crisis of high-quality child care opportunities, is that this acquisition allows us to expand our offerings to be able to serve more children and more families. And as I understand it today, we were able to accommodate, between 30 and 40 more children. As I understand it, we already are at a point of collecting wait lists and meeting with other people to try to figure out other opportunities to be able to serve them. So it certainly is a project that we appreciate the county support with, the leadership of our trustees, the financial support of both the FSA and the state of New York. And it just is refreshing for us to be able to be so responsive as an institution and ultimately be able to get to a point in which we're able to open a high-quality facility that I think we'll all be proud of. So stay tuned for when we'll be opening and sort of unveiling that facility later on this summer. In the last month, our College Board of Trustees has approved our operating budget for next year. And during that process, we'll be working to come to you next month, I believe, to Ways and Means and ultimately to the full legislature, to present a budget that ultimately is a flat budget. And what you're going to see when we talk through that is we've included a tuition increase, of course. We've also tried to make some reflections of all the investments we're making, and ultimately we're very proud of our due diligence to be able to create a budget that supports the quality of services and obviously teaching and learning. That is our mission, but ultimately is as really responsible as it can be given the climate and demographic changes associated with higher education in the state of New York. Included in that budget will be a request of you to increase our support 1.5%, as we have in recent years, and we'll be talking about the value of that support and ultimately the impact that it'll make for our students and for our program. So I look forward to the opportunity to be able to present in a comprehensive way the overall college operating budget, and certainly look to seek your support for that particular increase. Also, in the next month, we look to move through the appropriate process for your consideration to hold in trust for college the Cornell Cooperative building and property associated with the college's vision to build a workforce development center for this community. This is something that we've talked about for some time, and we work closely with Cornell Cooperative, extension of Cayuga County, with our trustees, to be able to really get ourselves in this position where we feel confident in the funds we'll be able to secure and other possibilities that are out there, that this is just something that could be completely powerful for the community by the college aligning its, certainly its vision with the communities to be able to have open door access in a centralized way for all things workforce development and training for both college students and community members at large. And we look forward to continuing to work with county agencies and state agencies alike as we fine tune the design and ultimately get to a point in which we can go out and begin the construction process. But the next step in the overall plan is going to be of you to be able to accept that building on the college's behalf. Our college's trustees accepted the building back in May, and we'll be looking to move through the process with you again next month. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but when it comes to the work for our trustees, and certainly our work together over the next month or so, that's really where our priorities lie.
Any questions? Mr. Lattimore.
Mr. President, the one of the buzzwords from one of your predecessors, or the interim, was regionalization. Is that now done away with? Are we still investigating whether or not, I know we have campuses in Fulton.
At this time, the college is not actively investigating regionalization. We're focused on working with you, our sponsoring county. We're focused on the financial models that we have in front of us. And ultimately, given our demographics as an institution, 60% of our enrollment comes from outside of Cayuga County. And given the fact that we in nature are a regional college serving constituencies from all over the region, I don't think it's something that necessarily is the door always shut, but at this point, the priority of the institution is focused on our other projects, our initiatives, and we believe we've done the best we can given this climate, and with your support, and hopefully your support again next month with an increase, that we've been able to stabilize our fund balances and still be able to create strategy and a vision that we believe will serve the college well for many years to come, regardless of the sponsorship model.
And secondarily, I've asked our corporation counsel to gather the bills on some of the legal issues that we've had in Fulton. So I'd like to see what kind of total bill legally we've had.
Okay.
Anybody else? No? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Committee reports and individual legislators' reports. Mr. Didio.
Yes, for all those that forgot or didn't realize it, that the Cayuga County Legislature sponsored a monthly meeting at the Springside last Friday, and it's through the Intercounty Association of Western New York. There are 19 counties that are connected to the western portion of the New York State Association of Counties. I'd like to, and what the counties do at each county is to showcase their county. And for your information, that was held last Friday. I've received calls. I didn't receive the letter yet, but our meeting last Friday morning at the Springside was pointed out to be one of the better meetings throughout the year. So I anticipate we have more I'm going to say more legislators, but we'll have some additional people there. Anyway, the thank yous go out to the Springside, to my wife Marie, to Charlie, what's your last name?
Believe it or not. Ripley.
Charlie Rigby. Rigby?
Ripley.
Oh, Wrigley. If anyone is familiar, with Charlie's business down in Moravia, he's connected to the farms and dairy industry down there by his family's name. So I'll point out in a second what he brought. We do ask many people to bring in a door prize, and that's just to promote the meeting. It's a Friday meeting, once a month. We've also thanking Steve Lynch, who gave a fine presentation. You had to leave, but the president was is Shelley Stein, and she was looking for you to point you out that you did a wonderful job of giving us information for that day. Thanks, Steve. And then Joe DeForest, who came in, and he wasn't a sub, because he's always good at what he does. So, Joe, we thank you. Karen Cool, if anyone doesn't know Karen, she is the new director of the Tourism Center. She did a fine presentation. She asked me how long. I said, could you just keep it to about 15 minutes? She could have went on for about 8 hours. So really appreciate that person coming in and doing that. Elaine Daly was present, along with Aileen McNabb Coleman, Doug Kearse, Tucker Whitman. I thank for the direction and the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you gave to us to use at we haven't used it all yet, but we will.
Side note, there's going to be a void in the budget this year.
Jimmy Orman, thanks, Jim. And Amanda Morgan. Sheila Smith, who is our clerk of the legislature, put together many things that are not thought of. And I just want to tell you something. She was opening boxes and picking up boxes that weigh maybe 50, 60 pounds with no problem. So you want to mess with somebody, pick on Sheila for a minute and see what happens. So I don't have much more to say about the intercounty. We probably will have more in the future. And you can look for Charlie Ripley to be involved. And if you could, I wish, I didn't take any pictures. That was all Tim Lattimore's fault, but we'll let that go for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Didio. Mr. Foley.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So switching to, I guess, a more serious note, I want to thank you for the job that you've been doing as acting administrator, and along with Lloyd. I have received some discussion from my constituents in regards to how that is working out. And so the question that becomes is how, there are simple questions that haven't been answered yet. One of which would be how long does Lloyd plan to kind of stay in the interim position? Is the legislature going to weigh in on that at some point? Is there a plan being brought forward? Additionally, oftentimes when we have department heads step into a different role, they get worn out by the end of it, if you haven't noticed that before. And sometimes they want financial incentive to continue or some type of compensation for their additional work duties. Is that something that this body will have to approve or negotiate at some point? I think these are important questions that should be brought forward to the legislative body at some point and discussed. It doesn't have to be today, of course, and I just wanted to kind of be on our radar so that we can hash it out and go from there. You might even have more details about that. And then additionally, defining duties and responsibilities. I know that you kind of hand down authority so that Lloyd can work in a day-to-day capacity. I think that's great. How far that goes and what delegation of responsibilities would be nice to be noted at some point too. Just to keep that in mind and go from there, so we have kind of a plan of who's running things day to day.
I pick you.
Better luck next time, Tuck.
We'll hopefully be working on all of that starting this month.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Dale.
Anybody else? Mr. Lattimore?
I just want to follow up on Mr. Didio's comments about the intergovernmental. I happen to be at Springside, but I was called to the chamber outing at Dutch Hollow where there was some storm damage from the water, and I know Moravia had it. And I'd like to give a thank you to all the people who help keep us safe that are here tonight, and hopefully we can get some resolve so that we can move forward on Mr. Foley's issue and their issues.
Any other legislators? If not, we'll move along to the chairman's report. I guess there's been a couple things going on. I'll just go over some bullet points. Probably least importantly, I moved my office back down here where chairman's office used to be. The attorney now has a respectable office, a little more than a closet. Flooding up north only continues to get worse. I'd like to say it's peaked, but I'm not sure it has. Every time I go on social media, I see new pictures of it being worse and worse and worse. Essentially, at this point, the parking lot at the state park is the new wading pool. It's completely underwater. It's pretty bad, and I know it's kind of out of our hands. I have to thank everybody, first responders, our people that have been involved in helping and responding to that. Governor's office has been, they reach out to me every morning, see if we need anything. They're more than helpful. So if anybody needs anything, knows anybody needs anything, don't be afraid to reach out. We have resources. There's been talk of the capital plan for I don't know how many years now. This was going to be the year. I talked to Mr. Gardner about it today. He had started working on one. Administrator had put him on pause. I essentially have taken him off pause. I've asked he bring something forward to this body, somewhat of an outline of what he thinks it's going to look like and a timeline. And it'll at least give us something to take a look at and give him the go-ahead to start working on it if that's what we want to do. But I think at some point we really need to start moving forward on that. New purchasing director will start July 8th. Shared services, we had a meeting about that last week. Dates have been set for those meetings. If anybody needs that information, reach out to either myself or Monica. All those dates have been sent out, I believe. The salary compensation study, I've asked a couple legislators to come in, get involved on that. That's hopefully going to be wrapping up shortly. Our new HR director is here, doing well. Department reports, there were some questions about those. They did not get put on the website last month. There was a lot of question about that. People liked seeing them. I've asked that they go back on. That's about all I got, unless anybody's got any questions for me. Mr. DeForest.
Is the work that Mr. Gardner will be doing on the capital plan, are we treating that as two separate sort of entities? So there'll be one that's roads and bridges and one that's buildings and grounds, or is it all
I guess that's why I've asked him to put something together and bring it to us. I didn't really give him an outline. And if we don't like what he brings to us, we can always say, well, we'd like you to do, before he gets started in deep, so.
Very good, thank you.
Anybody else? Not, we'll move along. Regular monthly resolutions.
Move 'em.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ways and Means had 4 resolutions that they took through committee, and they all moved with approval. I asked that they be brought through here and approved.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion on these? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those are carried. Health and Human.
Health and Human Services had 16 resolutions for the month. HH6 was amended and approved at the committee. HH16 was added at Ways and Means. It would require, I believe, a 2/3 vote because it's authorizing the transfer of funds from contingency to maintain the senior nutrition program through the end of the year. I certainly wanted to make it known that I was the one, as the Chair of Health and Human Services, who actually presented that at Ways and Means, but a lot of the legwork was done by Aileen McNabb and Hugh Tucker, and I certainly want to thank you for that. So I'd make a motion to bundle HH1 through HH15, and then we would vote on HH16 separately.
Move 'em.
Second.
Any discussion on those? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's carried. HH16,
Move it.
Second.
do a roll call?
I don't
Aileen?
think we need a roll.
Just a point for discussion. So this funding that we are providing does take care of a number of seniors on a wait list. So we are essentially increasing the budget for this program. And I'm hoping to ask the chair if we can continue to advocate at state level that the budget needs to increase as the demand is increasing in this county. Thank you.
Anybody else? Keith?
Yeah, just want to suggest that I don't think there's going to be any opposition, so I think we would find that we don't need a roll call unless someone just wanted a roll call.
Okay. Mr. Lattimore?
There's services that we provide, and this is one of them, that actually saves us money in the end by not having to have these seniors and handicapped people in some other facility, which might be a lot more costly. So as the SCAD van helps, this helps keep our people in their homes instead of being in institutions.
Any other discussion on this? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's carried. Thank you, Elaine. Government Ops.
Mr. Chairman, Government Ops has 5 resolutions. They've been through committees and approved, and I present them for legislature's consideration.
Move 'em.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Planning.
Mr. Chairman, Planning has 3 resolutions, have been through both committees, and seek your approval. I would like to offer as a bundle.
Move 'em. Second.
Any discussion on these? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Carried. Thank you. Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Public Works had 8 resolutions. They all went through committee and passed. I'd like to offer them up as a bundle unless somebody'd like them separated.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion?
Discussion.
Mr. Lattimore?
With the incident of the heavy rains, is there any other public works projects that are emergency? Nothing else? No bridges got washed out or anything else?
I don't know.
Okay.
Any discussion on these resolutions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carried. Thank you. Judicial and Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judicial and Public Safety has 5 resolutions this month. They've been through both committees, and I would offer them as a bundle.
Move 'em.
Second.
Any discussion on these? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Pledge 1,
Move it.
Second.
discussion. Mr. Batman.
This is an example of a resolution that has really no meaning, as far as I'm concerned. The parts of it that are good, parts of it that are bad. But with the good, we have to take the bad. And so I'll vote against it.
Okay. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
2, 3, 4, 5. Right down the middle.
Five times tonight.
There's 6. Joe DeForest also.
Oh, yeah.
Do a roll call.
Yeah, I think that does it.
Minus 1 person. Let's do a roll call.
Andy Dennison,
Yes.
Ben Vitale,
No.
Chris Peter,
Yes.
Paul Bigbee,
Yes.
Eileen McNabb Colton,
No.
Keith Batman,
No.
Joe DeForest,
No.
Charlie Ripley,
Yes.
Joseph Bennett,
Yes.
Elaine Daly,
Yes, or no, excuse me, no.
Wow.
I was getting, Charlie's like, yes. No.
Come on over.
Almost.
Tim Lattimore,
Sounded good. Let's see. Elaine voted no? I'm voting yes,
Michael
even though
Didio,
she's my
Yes.
favorite Democrat.
Brian Foley, Tucker Whitman.
Yes.
Pass.
What?
At this time, is there a motion to go in executive session to discuss employment history of a particular person?
Move it.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Bennett's opposed.
Tucker, are we moving or are we staying?
I would think we should move.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
let's
just add some more.
move and keep it short.
After?
Maybe.
No business afterwards.
Mr. Chair,
Tucker.
Tucker,
Tucker.
is there any business after?
I don't think there will be.
So unless people want to stay in the chambers to see us adjourn, that's the reason I asked that.
You can, it just sometimes takes 15 minutes for people to exit.
Yeah, no, I'm just suggesting that people are hanging around for the big.
You might want to talk to the census people. Do we want the attorney or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Because there's something I need to ask him about.